When we talk about love, we often hear it compared to a battlefield. It's been glorified in movies, songs, and books as though struggle, drama, and chaos are essential ingredients for passion. But love, at its core, was never meant to be a war. We often get into situations where we feel we have to earn someone's love by compromising the most important parts of ourselves. Maybe we tone down our passions because the other person doesn't understand them. Maybe we pretend to be okay with things we're really not. Maybe we silence our voice to avoid arguments or to appear easygoing. But all of this leads to one thing: disconnection, not only from the other person but from yourself. Healing love brings the opposite experience. It brings alignment. You don't feel like you're abandoning yourself to keep someone else comfortable. Instead, you feel empowered to keep growing, evolving, and becoming more of who you were always meant to be. And the right person doesn't just tolerate that, they celebrate it. They're not intimidated by your growth. They're inspired by it. They don't compete with your individuality. They support it. When you're in a love like that, you begin to feel a sense of freedom. Not the kind that means escaping responsibility, but the freedom to be honest, the freedom to be complex, the freedom to be evolving without fear of losing love. You're not trying to keep up with expectations that exhaust you. You're not worried that being fully seen will cost you the relationship. Instead, you feel more grounded, more centered, and more at peace, because you're not pretending. You're not hiding. And that's the beauty of healing love. It brings you home to yourself. It reminds you that the right person doesn't want a mask. They want the real you. And when you feel that kind of acceptance, that kind of emotional safety, it changes everything. You begin to love yourself more deeply simply because someone else showed you that you were worthy of love exactly as you are. One of the most misunderstood aspects of healthy love is how it handles discomfort. We tend to think love should feel good all the time, that if it's hard or if conversations get difficult, something must be wrong. But the truth is, healing love doesn't run from hard conversations. It walks straight into them with empathy. It doesn't see conflict as a threat. It sees it as an opportunity to understand, to grow, and to deepen connection. Avoiding difficult conversations in a relationship might keep the peace temporarily, but it comes at a cost: emotional distance. Every unspoken resentment, every ignored need, and every swallowed truth creates a gap. Over time, those gaps become walls. Healing love refuses to let those walls build. Instead, it leans in, even when it's uncomfortable. It says, "This matters, you matter. Let's talk about it." Not to blame or criticize, but to move forward stronger. And here's the key. It's not just about having hard conversations. It's about how you have them. Healing love communicates with the intent to understand, not to win. There's no scorekeeping, no passive aggression, no weaponized silence. When something is bothering you, you don't feel like you're walking into a fight. You feel like you're entering a space where you'll be heard, where your perspective won't be dismissed, and where solutions can be created together. In these kinds of conversations, healing love listens without interrupting. It doesn't jump to defend or deflect. It asks questions like, "Help me understand how you feel," instead of, "Why are you overreacting?" It validates instead of minimizes. That kind of empathy doesn't just solve problems. It builds trust. It creates an emotional climate where both people feel safe enough to be real, even when being real is messy. Avoidant love pretends things are fine to avoid temporary discomfort. Healing love faces the discomfort to create lasting peace. Avoidant love says, "Let's not talk about this now," and then never comes back to it. Healing love says, "Let's sit down and deal with this because I don't want this sitting between us." This is where so many relationships break down, not in the presence of problems, but in the avoidance of them. Healing love understands that silence isn't safety, it's disconnection. That's why it chooses courage over comfort. Not every conversation ends perfectly. Not every issue is resolved overnight. But when both people are willing to stay in the room, emotionally and mentally, something powerful happens. Intimacy deepens, respect grows, and love becomes more than a feeling. It becomes a practice. Because at the end of the day, healing love doesn't just want things to look good on the surface. It wants things to be good at the core. And that can only happen when you're brave enough to talk, to listen, and to keep showing up, even when it's hard. The love that truly heals doesn't start when someone enters your life. It starts long before that. It begins with the way you love yourself. So many of us are looking for a person to come in and rescue us from our pain, to finally make us feel worthy, to fix the broken parts we try to hide. But when we do that, we give away the most important responsibility we have, the responsibility to validate, nurture, and care for ourselves first. Because if you don't believe you're worthy of love on your own, you'll always be chasing it in others, and often in places that can't give it. When you lack a strong foundation of self-love, it's easy to accept the bare minimum. You tolerate inconsistency because you don't believe you can ask for more. You stay quiet when your needs go unmet because you're afraid they make you too much. You rationalize mistreatment because you've convinced yourself that's just what love looks like for someone like you. But none of that is true. It's just the pattern that plays out when you haven't yet made peace with who you are and what you deserve. Healing love, love that elevates instead of depletes, comes to those who have already started treating themselves with the very compassion and care they hope to receive from someone else. That doesn't mean you need to be perfect, or that you need to have healed every wound before you're ready for a relationship. But it does mean recognizing that no one else can fill the holes inside you that you refuse to acknowledge. The love you give to yourself sets the tone for every relationship you allow into your life. When you speak kindly to yourself, you'll no longer entertain people who speak to you with cruelty. When you respect your time, your body, and your emotions, you won't give second chances to those who repeatedly violate that respect. Self-love is not a feeling, it's a decision. It's choosing every day to show up for yourself, even when your confidence is low. It's holding space for your own pain, instead of outsourcing your worth to people who never earned the right to define it. And the more you practice that, the more your standards shift, not because you've become demanding, but because you've become deeply aware of your value. When someone comes along and offers real love, you'll be able to recognize it, not because it overwhelms you with butterflies, but because it feels familiar. It feels like something you've already been practicing with yourself. You'll see it not in grand gestures, but in consistency, respect, and quiet care. And instead of clinging to it out of fear, you'll receive it with calm, because you'll know deep down that love isn't something you beg for. It's something you're ready to share. Because you've already done the work of learning how to love the person who's been with you from the very beginning, you. One of the clearest signs that love is unhealthy is when it constantly makes you feel like you're not enough. When you're in a dynamic where you always feel like you have to do more, beat more, give more just to maintain someone's attention or affection, what you're experiencing isn't love. It's emotional performance. Real, healing love never makes you jump through hoops to earn your place. It never turns connection into a competition or affection into a reward for compliance. Because love, by nature, is not something you prove, it's something you share. If you find yourself always chasing validation in a relationship, constantly overthinking your words or actions, walking on eggshells just to avoid upsetting the other person, you're living in a state of emotional survival. That's not love, that's fear wearing a mask. And what makes this dynamic especially painful is that it often mirrors something deeper. A belief you carry that you have to earn love in order to deserve it. But the truth is, when someone genuinely cares for you, they don't keep you guessing. They don't make their affection conditional. They don't withdraw love as punishment or dangle approval like a carrot you're supposed to chase. Healing love doesn't demand constant reassurance through sacrifice. You don't have to drain yourself to keep it. You don't have to compete with others for it. You don't have to perform a version of yourself that's more likable, less complicated, or more pleasing just to keep someone around. Real love embraces the full spectrum of who you are. The strength and the struggle, the confident days, and the insecure ones. It offers you emotional safety, not emotional exhaustion. Think about it. In love that heals, you're not constantly trying to measure up. You're not kept in a state of anxiety wondering if today is the day they'll leave, or stop texting, or emotionally pull away because you said the wrong thing. Instead, there's consistency, there's presence, there's clarity. You know where you stand not because you had to earn it, but because the other person makes it clear through their words, their actions, and their energy. The most dangerous part about love that makes you prove yourself is that it teaches you that your value is conditional, that you have to keep producing happiness for someone else to be worthy of keeping. But love that heals reminds you that your worth is not up for negotiation. You don't need to constantly perform emotional labor to be chosen. You don't need to beg to be prioritized. When someone truly values you, they don't make you prove your worth. They already see it. They respect your presence. They listen to your needs. And they meet you in the relationship as an equal, not as someone you have to convince to stay. Healing love feels like mutual effort, not constant auditioning. And once you've experienced that kind of love, you'll never settle for anything that makes you feel like you're not already enough. One of the most powerful truths about healing love is that it doesn't try to fix your broken pieces. It simply holds them with care. So many of us are carrying wounds, past rejections, betrayals, insecurities, and traumas that we try to cover up in our relationships. And often we think that love means someone coming along to fix us, to repair what's been broken, to complete us. But that's not real love. Because real, healing love doesn't treat you like a project. It treats you like a person. It doesn't come with the goal of changing you. It comes with the intention of honoring where you are while supporting where you're going. When someone truly loves you in a healing way, they don't need you to be perfect to deserve their presence. They see your cracks and still find beauty. They recognize your fears but don't run from them. They're not trying to erase your past. They're walking with you through your present. And that changes everything. Because when love holds your pain without judgment, it begins to disarm the walls you built around it. You stop feeling like you have to hide the parts of yourself that are still healing. You stop feeling ashamed of your emotional scars. We all have moments of struggle, triggers we didn't ask for, emotional baggage that shows up when we least expect it. What matters is not having someone who promises to fix you. It's having someone who says, "I'm not going anywhere while you figure this out." They don't minimize your emotions. They don't get uncomfortable when things aren't easy. Instead, they create a space where being human is safe. That's what real love is, not perfection, but presence. Healing love offers a mirror, not one that reflects back your flaws, but one that reminds you of your strength, your goodness, your worth. And over time, that steady reflection begins to reshape the way you see yourself. Not because someone else's love is your identity, but because they've created the conditions for you to reconnect with the self you may have lost sight of. The you that is resilient. The you that is worthy of love without conditions. The you that doesn't need to be fully healed to be deeply loved. And this is key. Healing love doesn't replace your own responsibility for healing. It doesn't take the place of therapy, self-awareness, or inner work. But it does provide the emotional soil for those things to take root and grow. It gives you space to breathe. It gives you compassion when you're hard on yourself. And it shows up with consistency so you know you don't have to face your struggles alone. Because at the end of the day, the kind of love that heals doesn't pretend your pain doesn't exist. It simply loves you through it. And that kind of love becomes a soft place to land. A place where the journey of healing feels just a little lighter because you're no longer walking it alone. Healing love isn't loud or showy. It doesn't come in with fireworks or sweep you off your feet with dramatic gestures. It arrives quietly, often unnoticed at first. In a world where we've been conditioned to chase the highs of passion, the butterflies of uncertainty, or the adrenaline of someone who's emotionally unpredictable, we sometimes mistake consistency for boredom. But the truth is, consistency is the deepest kind of safety, and safety is where real love grows. When someone shows up for you day after day, not just when it's easy or convenient, but even when life is busy or emotions are hard, that is love in its most mature form. It's not glamorous, but it's powerful. It says, you don't have to perform for me. You don't have to fear being forgotten nor replaced. I'm here. And that message, delivered again and again through actions, not just words, is what begins to rebuild trust, especially if you've experienced relationships where people disappeared the moment things got real. Consistency looks like the text that comes when they say it will. It looks like them remembering the small details that matter to you. It looks like effort that doesn't disappear once they feel like they've won you. It's calling when they said they would. It's being emotionally present, not just physically close. And over time, that reliability begins to heal parts of you that used to feel like love was unpredictable, unstable, or temporary. Many of us are carrying wounds from inconsistent love, where people only showed up when it served them, or only offered affection when they needed something. And we've gotten used to those patterns, to the push and pull, the high of being wanted, followed by the low of being dismissed. But healing love interrupts that cycle. It feels slower, calmer, more stable. And while it may not give you the drama you're used to, it gives you something far better, peace. And here's the real truth. Peace is what allows love to deepen. When you're not constantly wondering where you stand, when you're not anxious about being forgotten or emotionally neglected, your nervous system relaxes. You can focus on connection rather than protection. You can build, grow, and share more of yourself because you trust that the person in front of you isn't going to run the moment things get uncomfortable. Consistency might not be the thing that lights the spark, but it's what keeps the flame alive. It's what carries a relationship through the seasons of stress, change, and challenge. It's what turns fleeting attraction into lasting intimacy. And when you've experienced the kind of love that is there, really there, every day, not just the good ones, you begin to understand that the most romantic thing someone can do is simply keep showing up, without needing a reason, without needing applause, just because they choose you, again and again. One of the most transformative parts of healing love is that it doesn't just feel good. It inspires you to be better. Not through pressure, judgment, or manipulation, but through reflection. When someone treats you with deep respect, kindness, and emotional integrity, it changes the way you see yourself, and it shifts what you believe is possible in a relationship. You begin to rise, not out of fear of losing them, but because their presence reminds you of your own potential. They don't drag you forward, they walk beside you, and their consistency, self-respect, and care become a mirror that invites you to do the same for yourself. Healing love challenges you, not to conform, but to grow. It shows you what it's like to be in a relationship where honesty is the norm, where vulnerability is met with safety, and where effort isn't one-sided. When you're in that kind of space, you naturally want to show up more fully. Not because you're afraid you're not enough, but because it finally feels safe to give from a place of truth rather than self-protection. You become more aware of your words, your habits, your emotional patterns, not because someone is policing them, but because you're being held to a standard of mutual respect and emotional responsibility, and it works both ways. Healing love inspires both people to become more self-aware, more emotionally available, and more intentional in the way they communicate. It's not just about chemistry. It's about two people being conscious of how they impact each other. In that environment, you can have honest conversations about your flaws without feeling attacked. You can express your needs without feeling needy. You can face your past without shame, because your partner isn't using your vulnerability against you. They're holding it with care. That kind of love doesn't settle for surface-level attraction. It's interested in emotional depth. It's invested in growth, not just pleasure. And what's beautiful is that the growth doesn't feel forced. It feels organic. You want to be more accountable, more compassionate, more understanding, because you're witnessing those very qualities in your partner. You feel motivated to rise, not out of fear of abandonment, but from a genuine desire to meet the same emotional standard being shown to you. Healing love sets a new bar. Once you've experienced it, it's hard to unsee the difference between attention and devotion, between attraction and alignment. You start to see how much of your past was rooted in survival, and how much more expansive love feels when it's built on mutual growth. You stop trying to win love, and you start choosing love that's already safe, steady, and real. And the best part, you don't lose yourself in the process. You evolve. You shed the layers of insecurity that no longer serve you, and you step into the healthiest, most grounded version of yourself. Because when someone shows you what respectful, conscious love looks like, it becomes almost impossible to go back to anything less. In the end, the kind of love that heals is not some grand, elusive fairy tale. It's real, grounded, and available to anyone who's willing to do the inner work to receive it. It's not found in emotional roller coasters or dramatic gestures that fade with time. It's built in the quiet moments, through honesty, empathy, self-awareness, and mutual respect. Healing love doesn't demand perfection. It asks for presence. It doesn't want you to lose yourself in another person. It helps you find yourself in a way you never have before. This love starts with you. It starts with choosing yourself, with setting boundaries, with refusing to chase people who only see your value when it's convenient. It's recognizing that being alone and emotionally healthy is better than being with someone who constantly wounds you in the name of love. Because when you've done that work, when you've loved yourself enough to walk away from pain, you'll only make space for the kind of love that reflects that growth back to you. And when that love comes, it won't make you question your worth, prove yourself, or shrink to stay. It will challenge you to grow, not by criticizing you, but by supporting your evolution. It will show up, not with chaos, but with consistency. It won't try to fix you. It will walk beside you while you heal yourself. That's the love you deserve. The kind that calms your nervous system instead of igniting your anxiety. The kind that builds with you, holds you through your weak moments, and calls you to rise, not out of fear, but because of how deeply seen and safe you feel. So don't settle for love that hurts just because it's familiar. Choose the love that heals, the love that honors you, the love that makes you better, not smaller. Because real love isn't just about finding someone to live with, it's about finding someone who helps you come alive. And that starts with you choosing to never again accept anything less.